Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome. This is the Skype Meeting Broadcast about Skype Meeting Broadcast. My name's Sean Wilson, and I am the Product Marketing Manager for Deployment and IT Pro within the Skype for Business Marketing team. Joined with me today is Greg Barabalt from the engineering team, and a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm the lead program manager for Skype Meeting Broadcast, part of the engineering team in Skype for Business.
Excellent. Just a quick reminder, everybody remember there's a Bing Pulse. We'll fire questions off there for your feedback as well. We've got Jamie in the wings, and he's actually going to be fielding questions for us for the Q&A manager. So let us know if you have additional questions. He'll make sure those get out. So let's talk a little bit about Skype Meeting Broadcast, what it is, and you know, we've been using it for a while, but it's nice to have you on the show to kind of give us a little bit more of a background and an overview.
Well, you know, we started about 3 years ago. We started building this and went to market just under 2 years ago now, with the intent of scaling Skype for Business meetings up. So Skype for Business has a 250 user limit. The 251st user just gets rejected. And so we needed a solution to help that scale bigger. Part of that actually was to try to begin the transition of folks that were still using Live Meeting.
Okay.
Live Meeting 2007.
Yes. You mean the platform that really transformed our way of moving into online meetings? If you think about it.
It was, yeah.
We've been doing cloud-based meetings since 2005 when we acquired Placeware.
That's right.
So, you know, Live Meeting has definitely been core to us and doing that. And so, you know, I think it's time for it to, for that ship to sail.
Yes, that product will actually officially end of life at the end of this calendar year. So December 31st, 2017, that we are vacating data centers, that thing gets shut down.
Yep.
We have some tools out to help people migrate and get content off of Live Meeting, recordings that they might have made. But the direction now is move to Skype for Business and move for large meetings, move to Skype Meeting Broadcast.
Awesome. So if we think about Skype Meeting Broadcast as all up, at its core is we're giving the ability for end users to be able to scale their meetings to the masses, right? Up to 10,000 users now, right? So
yeah. Today we support 10,000. We'll continue to push to make that number bigger. But you know what I like to describe Skype Meeting Broadcast as democratizing large meeting production. It used to be that you'd hire a studio, bring in outside vendors to help run a very large event. We want everybody to be able to do this. So very simple. You go to this web portal, broadcast.skype.com, set up the meeting. It basically works like a Skype meeting that you already use. We just add a couple of buttons to help you get the thing started. And
so right now we actually have, like we're looking at a broadcast, the thing here, because we're just using it, and it's natively in that Skype for Business client.
That's right. Yep.
So our ability to, where you say democratize, well, we're just marketing folks. All we had to do was go to broadcast.skype.com because it was enabled for our tenant, and we fired it up, and we were good to go. And so we were able to produce this. We've been doing, I think this is number 37. I'm looking over at Jamie for the confirmation, but this is our 37th broadcast since we started doing this.
It's exactly why we designed the product like this. It's great.
So who gets it?
Well, anyone in Office 365 with an E1, E3, or E5 license. We also now are in EDU market for E5 customers.
Yeah.
They all get to use Skype Meeting Broadcast. Anyone can go and set it up. And then for attendees, if you're an authenticated attendee and get the benefits of security features, we need a license for those users as well.
Okay.
But we also have an anonymous feature where the anonymous audience is not licensed. Really like anybody, like this audience here, right? Everybody watching today doesn't need a Skype for Business license.
So there's three options that people have. They have the anonymous where, you know, it's like one to many. Or one to infinite, well, to 10,000.
With no authentication.
No authentication.
Anyone on the internet.
The other one is there's an all company, which would require not only that they have that license for authentication, but then as well, that would be anybody with the login from that domain. The other is you can be very, very specific on streaming. So you could say, hey, I want just the 22 people that are in my organization to be able to view this, right?
Yeah, by name or by DL, whatever groups they might be on.
Excellent.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the questions that I get asked a lot, because if we look at customers that have gone and invested in these enterprise video distribution systems, they've spent the money to do multicasting, they've spent tens of thousands of dollars on this equipment that gets used and then goes dormant. The nice thing about the cloud is it's elastic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I spin it up, I use it, and then it goes away. The piece to that, though, is around, because I'm pulling this from the internet, what do I do? I don't want to eat up all the internet ingress I've got for all of these high definition video streams that I'm consuming.
Right. So we made a decision to push HD video, and we do that from Azure Media Services. And Azure Media Services is a Unicast provider.
Yeah.
So it basically means that everybody that's watching the video is pulling their own unique feed through the firewall.
Yep.
So you have n times however many, n being however many users are watching, times the current bit rate. People have invested in multicast. The reality is that they're probably still investing in multicast. It's a fragile, kind of ongoing expense that most companies do want to deprecate, move away from.
It's a high touch, high effort specialty skill set that requires a lot of hands-on work on the network.
That's right. Yeah. Where Unicast is quite simple, but it has this
detriment of potentially an internet ingress.
That's
challenge,
right. Yeah. So we have 2 partnerships that we've made actually integrated into the product. One with Hive Streaming and one with Collective, and both of those products do effectively a peer-to-peer distribution mesh, kind of an overlay network within the enterprise.
And they do that at the subnet level, right? So that they can distribute across where bandwidth typically is not constrained at the local area network. It's typically at the ingress, right? So they can come in and distribute.
Right. So they bring one or a few feeds in from the internet through the firewall, and then people within the company end up distributing it to each other. And it's not really subnet based. It really defines its own network as they have available bitrate or bandwidth. Yeah.
Excellent. So basically, someone would then go to Hive or Collective and then work with them to implement this software distribution.
Exactly. Yeah. You can go to Azure actually from the marketplace, or you can go directly to either Hive or Collective.
Okay.
And you buy licenses for the users you want to enable on this platform, and then it's a simple command that you run on our end that just says, now I want this configured for one of these providers.
And at that point, it's just an agent that runs on the machine, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's right.
Excellent. Well, we've been doing broadcasts now for about almost 2 years now. We've had we've had a lot of learnings. We've obviously are kind of looking to take it to the next level. There's a couple things there, though, that I think we should probably share with people out there about taking meetings to the next level, right? I know for us, we talk about the Q&A manager, and we use Bing Pulse. It's interesting. Bing Pulse gives you a couple of, or I guess Microsoft Pulse now gives you a couple different options. It gives you the capability to fire off Pulse questions where you get responses like what you guys are seeing. It also, one that we don't use just because of the volume we have, which is that sentiment of the meeting, right? So if you've got a large meeting of, 500, 2,000, 10,000 people, you can gauge real-time sentiment. We've seen it in some of the broadcasts done on TV, right? They use Pulse. So
it's popular in like political debates.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how is the speaker doing right now? And that's exactly what we wanted, was for our speaker or presenter to get a sense in real time of how the audience is feeling about what they're saying. Yeah, it's quite cool.
Yeah. Hey, so talk about some of these new features, like one that we've got enabled right now that is available for anybody. This is really cool about talking about like the power of Azure and the power of our intelligent cloud. Do you want to talk a little bit about the transcription of that?
Yeah, so one of the features that we're launching right now, in fact, into preview, and that'll go into production later this year, is automatic transcription and translation. So you'll see in your feed, I think it's down in that corner, a little button, a closed captioning button. If you bring that up, it'll list the languages that we selected earlier. So if you chose, you could listen or read our meeting right now in Klingon, Spanish, French. So we do real-time transcription. So we go speech to text. That transcript is downloadable at the end of the event, but it also then presents itself for a hearing impaired audience member. They can read subtitles or captions. or for an international audience, now they can read it in their own native language. It's a fantastic feature.
I know I was actually at Tech Summit in DC a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting because there was a gentleman in the front of the audience that was hearing impaired, and he actually came to me and said, "Hey, can I sit right here so that I can, so I can read your lips?" And I said, "Yes." And then I was telling him the story about how, the nice thing about Skype Meeting Broadcast is we're enabling it with transcription. So for individuals like yourself can actually still enjoy the broadcast without having to invoke third party.
Right. That's right. Yep. So that's just included in the product. When we go to production, that will be an E5 feature. So the meeting organizer would need an E5 license to make that work. But everybody else gets it with no additional license.
Awesome. We're getting some questions around that are coming in, and one of the ones that I actually wanted to bring up, because it's one that's there that we talk about a lot, is, hey, I want to be able to secure my meeting, but what about outside my company? Is that something that I can do?
Yeah. So today you can have a federated company. So if you're federated with a partner company, today you can enable, basically, if you can go into the portal and you can resolve the address of the person you're trying to invite, they can get in and sign in, and that will work fine.
And from an authenticated standpoint, if somebody was within, right now we've got company and we've got individual users, is there thoughts that we're thinking about being able to expand it? I know historically we've done it where we've gated the join URL for customers through like a registration page. That's typically how people are doing it now.
Yep. For webinars, registration model is super common. There are actually third parties that provide that. We don't build that first party.
Yep. Okay.
That can be done and put in front of the Skype broadcast. And basically all you do is you make a Skype broadcast that's anonymous.
Yep.
And at the end of the registration process, they either get the join link in email or they get it on screen, and we can direct them in.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of the extensions that we've done in there, right? We talked a little bit about Pulse and that, and Q&A. There's also something that you shared with me this week that I never even thought about, with how we've also got the Yammer integration, and how that you can also use that kind of almost as some of those advanced features that might have left live meeting. So come in a little bit on that.
Yeah, so Yammer itself. So you can embed a Yammer conversation into a Skype meeting broadcast. It would be over on a desktop view over on the right side, on a mobile device below. And that lets you engage in a social conversation, kind of a social stream during the event. So you can talk to other folks that are watching the meeting. Yammer itself has a set of polling and kind of features within where you can craft a poll and fire it out at the audience in a similar way that we do here with Pulse. You can actually do that within Yammer as well.
Oh, okay.
So there's other ways of kind of engaging the audience, and that actually is a pretty commonly used feature within live meeting that we want to make sure people are aware of in broadcast that they can transition to.
Well, one of the ones you told me is like, so if I'm in an authenticated meeting and I've got that Yammer going, this is kind of like an advanced, like, raise your hand kind of feature.
Yeah.
You were telling me, hey, let's say you've got somebody in the Yammer feed that's asking a question, or is this me that's responding to a bunch of these responses? You potentially, because they're on your network, you could actually bring them in to your inner meeting.
You could, yeah. So the event team meeting, on a Skype meeting broadcast, there's really two meetings going on. There's a Skype for Business meeting that we call the inner meeting, and then there's the audience, right? 10,000 people that are just watching. If they want to ask a question, we have no direct feedback mechanism, other than typing, but they can't turn on their camera or mic. If you did want to bring them in, yes, they could ask maybe in the Q&A or in Yammer and indicate, I want to say something, like you were suggesting. And if you bring them in and invite them through the Skype for Business client in the same way that you would always invite someone, just by adding participant, they don't become producers. So they can't stop your broadcast. They can't change the layout.
Oh, that's great.
They just come in and can do basic audio, video, and in the IM. So you could actually kind of drag somebody into that inner meeting, let them ask their question, even turn on their camera, and then leave.
So, like, if we happen to have a question right now on PSTN calling, which we won't because we're doing the Skype broadcast, we could actually drag Delonda in on our team to be able to provide some color commentary on maybe what we're doing.
Exactly.
So that's cool. That's great.
Yeah, and that can be done in real time during the meeting. You don't have to go back to the portal and add them as an event team member. It's just on the fly.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about how we're capturing video. There's an interesting dynamic. We've done it here historically with, you know, a conference cam and from Logitech, and we're kind of evolving now to a next, like, more production quality. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how we can look to do that?
Sure. Well, so Skype for Business will support any webcam. So you could run a Skype meeting broadcast with just a webcam, microphone, and go live. We also have some third-party devices, like this is one from Magwell, that does HDMI to USB. It looks like a webcam. Here we're using it to take a kind of a broadcast studio quality camera and feed that HDMI into the meeting, so you get, you know, a richer camera view.
Because it's a Skype because that meeting we're using is a Skype client, it needs the USB to be the video source.
Exactly.
Correct?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay.
But we can also use that to get content in, like desktop sharing, and so we can do audio and video from desktops into the meeting by just taking a laptop with an HDMI output and plug it in there and bring it in like it was a camera source.
And actually, we've done that. Jamie and I have done that a lot when we've done demos, and we use that actually. I'm going to teach or give a little trick. You know, the fact that you want to bring it into a meeting, you can actually loop your own machine in as your output from your machine in through that USB and present your own camera as your own. So you don't have to have multiple laptops to do that. You can use the Magewell to bring your own camera or own display source into as a camera.
That's cool.
Feed.
Yeah.
So
we will, just to give it some idea, the desktop sharing is by far the most requested feature for Skype Meeting Broadcast. That's in that's in development right now.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Excellent. So we wouldn't have to actually do that. We could potentially use the desktop sharing feature.
Eventually, you'll be able to just use the desktop sharing to get desktop capture in. You'd still want to use this for high-end video cameras. Desktop sharing will actually only support video, so we won't have audio. So if you did want to show like a marketing reel, you know, a sizzle reel with some audio in it, you'd still use something that can capture both. But yeah, desktop sharing is in development right now.
Awesome. You know, there's some best practices, and actually we almost had to utilize it earlier, which is URL redirection. We use our ak.ms, which is our internal URL redirection for Microsoft. The reason for doing that is really because we want to ensure that we want it to be a simple join link. We don't want this big long GUID number that's like 3,000 characters long in the URL. But the other piece to it is also, if anything ever happens to the original and you need to recreate a meeting, you can actually use that same original redirection and just change its back end.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's kind of a best practice, and there's a number of them out on the internet that you can choose from. We use aka.ms, it's an internal one. But yeah, certainly you can find these online. They're a great tool to both shorten and even provide a vanity link.
Oh, okay.
You know, like EC Live, I think you'll announce later, is our link for next week.
Yep.
So the other thing, again, roadmap item, we are also currently developing reusable URLs within the product itself. So you won't need to have a third-party link. You could actually just create a new meeting under the same URL. You know, for more recurring or instance-style meetings, so you can create a series, like our broadcast. Yeah. Part of that actually will show when people join to watch. Below the video will be a gallery of past events, so they can actually go back and see, you know, last week's or last month's event.
I think we just found the next evolution of the bi-weekly broadcast.
Yes. That'll be a great feature.
You know, one of the things that I know you brought some props for us to kind of take a look at, but one of the biggest things that we get is, hey, I'm going to be in an auditorium, or I'm going to be in a big stage event, and I want to be able to bring in not only the video feed that's coming off a major camera, but also the audio. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So one of the things I brought was just a little mixer, audio mixer. It's a USB output as well, captured audio and feed it into the Skype meeting. It lets you take a balanced audio source, really any microphone, or another audio source like a PC, adjust the levels, you can test it, you can actually see with some LEDs on here if you're getting any high gain. But it's a great way to capture audio from the event. Audio tends to be the thing that people ignore, right? And it actually is the most important part of the event. There's probably a percentage of this audience right now that's sitting in a car listening, hopefully not watching, but listening. Or
overhead, right?
They're at their PC and they're multitasking, right? There may be an Outlook reading email and the meeting is behind. The video is nice and it'll look good if they're watching it, but the most important thing is that they can hear what we're saying and that the audio isn't interrupted. So you really want good, high-quality audio from the room into the meeting. And one of the features that we've added now, if you go to TechNet, you can search for our auditorium mode and set this. It's a reg key that actually suppresses our noise suppression. It turns off our noise suppression. We do a thing in Skype for Business to take ambient sound from the room, white noise from air conditioners, background noise from people in the hallways, and filter it all out. Keyboard typing. And we filter it all out. The downside of that is if you're trying to play music in your meeting or the audience starts clapping, we suppress sound. And now you can't hear. And so you'd have the speaker talking, their lips are moving, you can't hear them because we've cut out the audio. So for a Skype meeting broadcast, you want to actually disable that and just get all the audio from the room into the meeting.
Wow, I think we will, that's actually great news. I think we're actually going to use it next week. We'll talk about a little bit about what we're going to do. But being in an
should have invited me sooner.
I should have invited you sooner. Luckily, I invited you before, so we'll solve that, right? So, you know, one of the things that Skype Meeting Broadcast really enables any user to do a broadcast, but it also enables organizations like marketing or HR to really think beyond where they would have to go and engage IT and drive this. And so, you know, if we look at our audience, the majority of our audience today is actually is mostly our IT pros and partners. But one of the best things that we can do is help them enable Skype Meeting Broadcast at the end user level to really enable it. And because it's available in every SKU in enterprise, and then obviously the faculty for the education markets, we really need to make sure that people understand that when you're in IT, you can do this. And we actually have some great resources. Actually, if you go into the Office 365, we have a productivity library and actually have something specifically dedicated to how to use Skype Meeting Broadcast as a user level to get that out and use that.
Yeah, it's on by default. So everybody can use it. Today, you just go to broadcast.skype.com and start it up.
So we've got a couple questions. One of the ones that we had here was around Q&A section of the Skype Meeting Broadcast and Pulse, and is there a way to natively integrate that, or are we going to look to kind of bring some of that Pulse questioning into the actual client?
So there's a couple things that happen. So with Q&A, we did integrate that. We built that kind of from scratch, and that's deeply integrated. It's really nothing more than a checkbox. I want to have Q&A, or you don't. With the others, you know, we are going to remain loosely coupled with third-party services and first-party services. But, you know, that list will grow. We'll have more extensions than just the 3 that we have today. And where possible, you know, we'll try to improve that scheduling experience. I know with Yammer in particular, we need to do a better job of just giving you the channel and letting you sort of have a drop down and pick the channel you want and integrate it. So yes, we'll make those things better.
Excellent. You know, we were talking about this beforehand. We've talked a lot about it. A lot of questions about, hey, you were just saying audio is so important. Not everybody can stream it or has access to it. What's the capabilities to potentially bring somebody in over PSTN or audio, dial in audio specifically?
So that is a gap in the product today, and it especially is a gap when you compare us to live meeting. It is, you know, it's an item that we're looking at and trying to figure out how we might tackle, either by having people dial into the intermeeting part, or by dialing into a service that we would connect to the Azure Media Services, and they'd hear later. There's benefit to both. You know, the Azure side is 20 seconds or so behind live, so if you dialed in there, you'd hear the same audio as everybody else. And if you were actually dialing in so that you had an audio device and you actually wanted to see the slides at the same time, they'd be more synchronized. But dialing into an Azure audio service right now, that doesn't exist. So that's some work that has to be done.
Awesome.
It'll take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we understand, like, screen sharing was our #1 request, and so we're doing the efforts to continue to build and develop that.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we keep talking about is, the nice thing about the cloud is we can add features, and it doesn't require us to do a forklift on your enterprise.
Right.
So if you think about enterprise video, where somebody's gone and bought a hardware-based solution, the ability to add features and functionalities becomes much more problematic almost.
Sure,
Like it becomes a challenge because it involves a capital expense because they're not typically software upgradable. The fact is that you're now dealing with something that runs across an entire enterprise, not necessarily something that is evergreen in the cloud that we're able to be able to continue.
And it's underutilized.
Yeah.
It's expense that sits in the data center for most of the year unused.
I know. I used to run it for us internally at Microsoft, and we had this entire enterprise video platform that we went and built out and spent way too much money on to develop and build custom like delivery mechanisms and multicasting and it's all deprecated. We now use Skype Meeting Broadcast for everything from our IT all hands and company all hands to town halls to the Satya stuff internally as well as obviously externally. So
Microsoft today is doing between 6 and 10 broadcasts a day.
Wow. Okay.
Across all the different business units, so it gets a lot of use here.
Okay. Now, one of the questions that we have, will there be a point in time where you can do a Skype for Business broadcast spur of the moment? Will it always be a 10-minute lead time?
Not really sure what the 10-minute lead time means, but so maybe if you can get that clarified. But the process to set it up, I've done demos like at Tech Ready where I challenged the audience to see how fast, and within 30 seconds, went to the portal, created the broadcast, made it anonymous so they could join, and started. Really, it's a matter of creating the meeting, grabbing the join link, joining in Skype for Business, and hitting start.
Awesome.
There is a 20 to 30 second delay of the stream, and maybe that's what this question is really about. But that really we don't see going away.
No. Well, and that's a lot of a couple things. One, it's obviously us getting it off to Azure, but it's also an encoding factor. It encodes across multiple codecs, and I can't remember. I think it's somewhere between 7 and 12.
Yeah, now we do 12 because
okay.
we're adding a 4th bit rate to go into a very, very low bit rate for the most network constrained companies.
And that comes across different media formats of MP4, right?
Yes,
iTunes, QuickTime, right?
HLS,
so has to be able to do that. So we've got 12 separate things. So it's going to take time to do that encoding. So we have to keep our
we have 12 encodings. We have to distribute through the global CDN. It has to get through the firewall and get cached on local devices. So there's laws of physics that we can't really violate here.
Yep.
It's going to take time to get the media.
What, you mean you can't be faster than the speed of light?
We can work on that. What we do instead is, like, we know that 20 seconds is there and it's part of the service. We're going to use it, right? So now what we do is we use that for transcription. So that takes a couple seconds. We actually use that time to do transcription and then feed it down to the attendee.
Awesome. Well, there's our next opportunity for people to not only tune in but see really what it can do, and our goal is actually to push the levels, and we want to actually take the Skype broadcast and see if we can push it. We're doing a broadcast live from Enterprise Connect.
Awesome.
Enterprise Connect is the Industries UC show. We've been doing it for years, and this year we're going to be broadcasting live our keynote. We're going to be doing some additional broadcasts, which we will get out through our different channels. I'm just trying to get Jamie, can you do me a favor and move the slide for me? And then give us some content. We're gonna actually go live on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time for the keynote, and it's going to be aka.ms/EC Live. Last year, I think we had multiple thousand people joining live. We've had people watch it after the fact. We will also make sure you stay tuned to our Twitter feeds. We will be doing live broadcasts from the booth as well. 4 additional broadcasts on Wednesday afternoon. Jamie Stark and myself will be doing a recap of Enterprise Connect and the announcements and what we've seen there, but also make sure you tune in on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern for the keynote for Enterprise Connect from Microsoft. So, yeah, I want to also thank Greg for joining me this morning, talk a little bit about the best practices, and really, thanks for building a product that we use every other week to reach out to thousands of people.
Awesome. Thanks for using it.
Thanks.